everybody, and welcome to the next episode of the Wayward Lasses All the Things podcast. I'm your host today, Brittany, joined by my sister Courtney.
Hello, sister.
And my mother, Amy.
Hello, daughters.
And our very special guest for this podcast, Taylor Kirkbride.
Hello.
Hello. Sorry, we do this whole British accent thing in the beginning. It started from Peppa Pig, I believe.
Yep, Peppa Pig. Mm-hmm.
I just can't really say sister without doing a British accent now. So today we're going to be interviewing Taylor and her business and some experiences that she wants to share. But before we hop into that, we are going to do some food trivia, and Mom has got the questions. Take it away.
I do, yes. And guys, you are going to have to draw from your knowledge. This is not going to be a multiple choice or a true or false. You're just going to have to know the answer. So this one should be an easy one, and I'm going to try and keep it to a minimum, like around 5. So what iconic meal did McDonald's introduce in 1968?
The hamburger and fries?
More.
Is that it?
More?
Quarter pounder?
The Big Mac?
Yes. Who said Big Mac?
Oh, the Big Mac?
I did. Okay. It was me. I did it. Sorry.
Yes. The Big Mac. Yes. Okay. Question number 2. What was the name of Subway's previous spokesman who apparently lost 245 pounds eating only Subway products?
Jared.
Anybody know his last name for bonus points?
No.
Rhymes with Ogle.
Fogel.
Fogel.
Jared Fogel.
Jared Fogel. Okay. So should be good. All right. In 1997, Taco Bell launched an advertising campaign that grew to be widely popular. What animal was the star of this campaign?
A chihuahua.
Yes!
Oh, yes.
Yo quiero Taco Bell!
Yeah.
Brittany, yes, that was good.
All right, two more. Which fast food restaurant still boards the slogan, "Have it your way"?
Have it your way. Burger King. Yes? I just sing the jingle in my head.
Burger King is correct. All right. Is this one still? Yes. Which fast food chain is known to have the meats?
Arby's. We have the meats. Bonk, bonk. Hey, I like this one.
Yeah.
So either we eat too much fast food or we watch too much TV.
It's a little bit of both.
We've got some unhealthy habits going on here.
Honestly, ever since I moved down here to the Greenville area, the only fast food I will eat now is Chick-fil-A.
Yeah.
I don't eat any other fast food.
I got the app, Brittany, and I got points.
Yeah. Dude, quick plug-in for Chick-fil-A. Get the app. They will send you free stuff. I got like a free 30-piece nugget. I get free sandwiches all the time, free milkshakes, and every time you get points back to buy more stuff. So, Chick-fil-A.
Good to know.
Brought to you by Chick-fil-A. All right, guys, let's go ahead and hop into the podcast. Taylor, we're going to go ahead and start putting the focus on you now. What I would like to hear first is if you could just tell us a little bit about how you got into your business, the Let It Grow Doula. If you can kind of let our listeners know what that is, because I didn't know what that was until a couple of years ago, and kind of just how you got into the business, your passion for it, and kind of take it from there.
Well, I've been a nanny for about 15 years, and I've worked pretty much exclusively with newborns and infants. So it's just kind of this natural progression for me. And then I became unexpectedly pregnant. And also in the middle of my pregnancy, my brother passed away. And it was probably, it It is. It is the most tragic experience that I've ever been through. And with going through it solo and going through it with the most intense amount of grief that I have ever experienced in my life, um, made me want to make sure that no one ever has to go through that by themselves again. Like, I want to be able to be a beacon and someone that can hold your hand and be there for you during those times, because birth is amazing. It's magical. It's beautiful. Like, you literally, like, you make a child inside of you, you grow your own organ for your child to grow inside of, and then you birth it. Like, that's insane. and and so I but it also comes with like this intense amount of duality, where it's amazing and beautiful, but then there's also a lot of grief that goes in with it. And so I want to be there for that grief aspect. And losing my brother was the catalyst for me. And also doing it solo. It's like, hey, there's other women, other birthers that do this by themselves. Like, I don't want anyone to ever be by themselves. And so what a doula does is they're around for, mm, they can be around for your whole entire pregnancy, but usually towards like the last, like between 35 to whenever you birth. And then they're your birthing coach. They pretty much help you and educate you so you can have the best birth that you possibly can. Like, I mean, chaos happens. There is always the what ifs, and there's always little things that can happen. But doulas are there to make sure you are advocated for and that you get to have the birth that you want. Um, and I'm specifically focusing on the postpartum aspect of it, because I'm really big into nutrition and really big into nurturing this new step that you go into. And I feel like postpartum is this aspect of motherhood that gets kind of ignored. So you have your baby, and then all the focus goes on the baby. Like, what about the mother? You just went through this intense process. You birthed a child, you grew a child, you also said goodbye to your old self. And now you're
Yeah.
a mother, and now you have to take care of another human being. And you also have a new relationship with, if you have a spouse or a partner, you have a new relationship with your spouse or partner. And it's like, how do you juggle all these things? And how do you do this? And then also take care of yourself and heal from birthing someone or having a cesarean. So that is what I want to focus, or what I'm focusing on, is the postpartum aspect, because I feel like it gets ignored. And I also feel like we have this culture that is like the snapback culture. And if you don't go directly back into normal, then it's weird. Um, and how I view it is that you have a new normal. And it's okay to embrace that. You don't have to get back to that pre-baby weight. You don't have to do like any of these things that sometimes our culture puts this like top tier on. Like, you have to do this, like you have to be the most amazing mother, but then you have to like also do all these other things. And what I want my clients to focus on is just being how they feel they want to be, instead of trying to prescribe to all these other kind of like guilt and shames and everything, like the mom guilt that comes into play. It's like, no, let's focus on you and how can I help you become what you want to be. And
I love that. I love that you shared that. I've got several friends that I know. You're right about the whole postpartum thing. I mean, I don't have kids, so I don't know what it's like, and I'm sure my mom and sister can attest to that. But I did have one really close friend that kind of just threw it out there of postpartum, and she didn't know how to get through a lot of the things, and she wasn't quite sure how she was feeling, but she felt alone and she felt lost. And I never really heard it explained in that way that you said, you know, you just did all of this, you grew a baby, and now all of the focus is on the baby. And it's not that, I don't think it's self-centered, but you just pushed a baby out of you. You know, there's so much happening with you and the recovery and everything that you said. I'm so glad you mentioned that. So for with your doula business, you're going to be there also after the fact to kind of help coach them through that
mm-hmm.
and be there with them through all that. Is that correct?
Yeah, that's I feel like that's where my passion comes into play. I When I was pregnant, I randomly found a postpartum book club on Instagram, and those six ladies have been my rock. Like, we all, like, my child she's 13 months. We still talk pretty much every day. And I would have had no idea what postpartum brought. And so that's like what I want my clients. I want to be able to kind of have that like book club effect with my clients. And like we can talk about everything, like that first poop that you have. I didn't know about that. That was bizarre. And like, sorry for the potty talk, but like, there's so many things about postpartum that people don't talk to you about, like your nipples or your like your joints. The fact that relaxin is going through your body, and sometimes your feet hurt at like 4 months, and you're like, why do my feet hurt? Like, what's happening? Um, so there's just so many aspects of postpartum that we don't talk about, and I fully believe that postpartum, like once you have a child, postpartum is the rest of your life. And you are forever going through new stages of life with a child. And may it be, you have infant, you have new, like you have toddler, you have the, like just every adolescent stage, you have the preteen, you have tweens, you have teenager, and then you have adult child, like your children become adult. And so I feel like as a birther and a mother, there's always a postpartum stage that you are learning how to deal with. And so, yeah, I just want to be kind of the community aspect of that I feel like is lacking with mothers, and just be like, we can talk about everything.
So I think that's really awesome, Taylor. Is that, and if I'm getting too personal, I'm sorry.
No.
Is that something that you experienced then after you had your daughter, and then you had enough sense about you to either go on the internet and search for other women who were experiencing these things? Or did you have somebody close by you to say, you know what? This is postpartum, and these things that you are feeling are natural. Or did you kind of have to just find your way through it and say, well, is this natural? Is there something wrong with me? And if you did, again, then kudos for you that you had enough sense about you to actually reach out and try and find your people, if you will, to try and connect and walk through this journey together.
I for with
I said
pregnancy,
a
I
lot.
was
I'm sorry.
terrified. No, that's fine. I'm going to go through all of it. With pregnancy, I was terrified of postpartum depression and anxiety. It's something, I have depression and anxiety, so I'm predisposed to that. And then also with the grief of my brother, I was just very worried about that. I was kind of, it was like the perfect storm for me. So finding a group was of the utmost importance to me. It's like, I need to find other women, other people I can connect with, to have my tribe, because I moved to South Carolina 22 weeks pregnant with my brother just had passing away, and living with my mom. And now I live with both my parents, and both my parents are like divorced, and I just felt so alone. And so I felt like I needed to find my tribe. So I went out searching for it, and also was that I knew that I needed to be open and to talk about what was going on with me, because if I didn't, then I would just like sit and stew in my head. And ever since my brother's passing, it's kind of been the promise to myself, because I know he struggled with not talking about anything. So I was like, I'm going to be super open about literally everything. Um, and yeah, so I went out and looked for a group, um, and was active about that. Went out and found a therapist. Nectar Community in Greenville is amazing. They have been my beacon of help, and just finding groups through that. They focus a lot on maternal health and pregnancy and all of the above. So I went out searching, because I felt like I was going to struggle, and I was also scared of the struggle, because I didn't know what that was going to entail. I mean, after you give birth, you have the most intense hormonal surge that you're ever going to have pretty much in your life. And so that kind of scared me, like hearing that. It was intense. So yeah, I went out searching for it. And with that, it has brought me a lot of, or not a ton of friends, but a great close knit group of women that I feel extremely comfortable with, and I've only known them for maybe a year, and I feel more comfortable with them than some people I've known for 13 years.
Yeah. Wow.
I love that you mentioned the tribe. That's definitely one of the things that we're trying to do here with the podcast is just to create a community of people that, share their experiences, their stories, know that they're not alone, know that everyone is struggling, and to just provide that platform for everyone to get their word out and find that community. So I'm so glad you brought that up.
Mm-hmm.
Sorry, I'm going to talk a little bit, but just my voice is, for anybody who's listening, I lost my voice, so I'm really sorry. I'm going to try to talk a little low because maybe that'll keep me from cracking. But I want to go back, if you don't mind, Taylor, and I want to talk a little bit more about grief, because I think, like you said, it's not grief in childbirth and becoming a new parent is something that's really overlooked because it's supposed to be so joyous and this, most amazing, beautiful thing, which it is. I have 3 kids myself, and my last 2 kids, actually my last one, I went through such a hard time, and I felt like I couldn't tell anybody because I was just expected to just be happy. Like, you should be happy. You just had a baby. You should, and your baby is healthy. And there are moms whose babies aren't healthy or who maybe had a way more difficult pregnancy than you. So I think it's so great what you're doing because we need to normalize that women really go through a grieving process. I love that you said grieving your old self. And even I had to grieve a little bit some of the relationship that I had with my husband because my body changed and I just felt like a different person. There's just so much involved there. So I know that part of what you said talking about grief was finding your tribe, but do you have any other practical advice for a mom who's maybe listening right now, sitting home, going through this? Like what could they do? What should they do? What's anything? I know that people talk about meditation, going out for a walk. Like, do you have any practical advice like that for someone who's really just in the grieving process and might not be able to identify it or might not know kind of how to handle that?
Don't compare yourself to anybody. Like I feel like there's always this, like, well, this mom does this, and this mom does this, and this mom does that. Stop. And that's like easier said than done, of course. But there's been so many things that I let go of. And that has been my biggest help is letting go. It's like, I'm not that mom. I am my mom. I am me. I am me as a person. And I get to be this mom. I get to be who I want to be as a mother and as a parent. And that doesn't involve anyone else. There's no rule book. There's no, like, you can follow like the Pinterest mom or this mom or that mom. No, stop. You're fine. Like, you get to do you, and you get to feel every single feeling that you're feeling. And as you move through it. Don't stop it. Don't bury it. Don't try and like hide it. Like, feel it and move through it, because your children watching you move through those feelings and actually feeling them is going to teach them how to have emotional intelligence.
Mm-hmm.
So I think just moving through it, feeling it, and being able to hold on to the fact that you do get to be you, and that's what you get to do.
Yeah, I love that you said that, not comparing yourself, because I'm guilty. I do that. Social media is great. Social media is great for keeping in touch, but I think it's also our biggest enemy because it's hard not to scroll through and see what other people are doing. And I heard somebody refer to like social media as someone's highlight reel of their life. You're only looking at their highlights. You have to remember that, right? You're not looking at their lowest points. So it's hard for me. And I actually had to like take a sabbatical from social media for a bit because it was too hard for me. Like I couldn't help it. So that's really great advice. Thank you for sharing that.
Mm-hmm. And walking. That's in my other one. That clears my brain
Unfollow.
And everything. Mm-hmm.
That's good.
Question I've got for you, Taylor, with your doula business, kind of, what are some struggles that you have been experiencing kind of, as a female and you have your own small business, struggles that you've had with getting your business to where you want it to go or where you need it to be? And maybe what are your plans or your goals for your business here in the next year or so?
I'd say it's all struggle. Finishing up my certification to get my full spectrum doula, it's hard. With being a single mom and having a 1 year old, it's intense. um, I mean, not everyone or your kid doesn't nap every single day for 3 hours. So trying to find study time is difficult, and also juggling everything is difficult. But being able to just kind of be like, okay, even if I did one small task today, that's awesome. And if I didn't do one small task, cool, that's cool too. And there's just been like, I feel like I wanted certain things to be finished on like a certain timeline, and I've just had to like throw that away. And um, I think my biggest thing that's been helpful is trying to find a tribe of doulas in Greenville, and I've been starting to reach out to different doulas, and that's been great. And they're a huge encouragement to keep on going and keep doing what you're doing, and kind of help with the imposter syndrome, which I feel like can come in with pretty much everyone, where you don't think you're good enough. And it's like, no, you are actually good enough. Like, keep going. Don't stop. Keep going. Um, and with where I want to be going in the next year is I'm going to be working on my nutrition certification for perinatal, postpartum, and baby nutrition. So I want to integrate that into my business and focus a lot on meals for families and women and birthers and their babies. Because I don't know, I really feel that nutrition can change a lot in you. And so and I also feel like when you're at postpartum or right after you have a baby, you don't really feel like cooking, or you don't have time to cook. And I want to make something that is attainable. Because sometimes I feel like with the health world and nutrition world, it has this like very high price tag on it.
Yeah.
Because they use the term superfood, or like all those terms are great, but it becomes inaccessible. And I really want to make things accessible, and not this like you have to spend X amount of dollars on this. Like, no, you can make a nutritious, delicious meal, and it can cost you not that much money. And so that's my goal, is to work with food and make things accessible for families, and to teach families, women, birthers, kind of take the not the or yeah the mysticism, or no, just the difficultness out
Mystery.
of like the mystery out of like making food every night.
Mystery.
Like,
Yeah.
it's hard. Yeah, like it sucks. It's
Yeah.
not a fun thing to do. So
Yeah.
that's
Yeah.
one of the things I want to help with. Like, that's just like another emotional task that like takes up a lot of space, that doesn't need to take up space. So that's one of the things I hope to help with.
Yeah. It's so funny that you say that, because for my oldest is 17, and he was a preemie, and I was always like so scared to like, touch him basically. Like I was afraid to like give him
Mm-hmm.
anything or whatever. And I would only buy like Gerber baby food. That's all I would buy. And I remember when I had my middle child, excuse me, my aunt was over, and she was like, why are you spending so much money on baby food, on sweet potatoes? Go boil some sweet potatoes and blend it up. And I was like, you can't do that. And she's like, yes, you can. Stop being ridiculous. Like, you can buy a pound of sweet potatoes and save so much money. And I was like, it sounds so funny. I laugh at it now, because now I made my baby food for, my youngest. But like, I don't know that everybody knows that you can do that. So it's
Yeah.
good. You're right. Like, you need to be able to talk about those things and tell moms, like, just boil some carrots and blend it up for your kid.
Yeah.
It's so funny.
I never thought of that. I didn't even think. I'd be like, yeah, you have to buy the right baby food for the baby. You can just mash up some sweet
Yeah, you
potatoes.
can just make it. I mean, it
Could
takes
just make
time,
it.
and I get that. That's like, that's another thing on your list of to-dos to do. Um, but like I like to follow baby-led weaning. And so my daughter, she pretty much eats everything that I eat. Like, I didn't do any purees or anything like that. And so I want to take the mystery away from that as well, because it's also takes out, like, you don't have to make anything. You just give them the same thing, and it's great.
Love that.
That's so interesting though, because I mean, when I was growing up, I don't honestly, or my brother's 10 years younger than me. I don't remember my parents going out and buying baby food. They literally would just like make a bowl of rice and like boil it down till it was like oatmeal or just in Filipino they call it lugao. It's just very, very like watery rice that a baby just sucks on and it just they can just swallow it. So the whole concept of going back to, making your own potatoes for your baby or, the greens for your baby, that just makes sense to me. And for other women out there, um maybe that's the option now than to be spending, I don't know how much baby food is nowadays, but
So
it may
much.
become more economical to do something like that. So I
Mm-hmm.
love that, I guess, in a way that this is coming back, if you will, because
Mm-hmm.
it's something that I was used to when I was growing up. Um, but I want to go back to, if you don't mind, because as far as like, I have to be honest, when we first got your submission, the girls were like, "Well, she's a doula. She's got a doula business." I'm like, "Doula,
Mm-hmm.
doula, okay." So I had to look up doula, right? So we already
Mm-hmm.
explained to our listeners what a doula is. But in terms of, if you were going to, if they find this very interesting and they want to maybe pursue a business as this or check out becoming a doula, um, do you need to be certified, number one? And is it expensive to actually study to learn how to become a doula?
That is a very good question, and it can go all over the board. Um, and also, I feel like if you talk to different doulas, they will have different answers. You don't have to be certified. I feel like though, if you like in certain professions, when you hire someone, you want like it's not needed, but people want that piece of paper, be like, oh yes, you're certified. Um, and I feel like when people hire you, it is a huge help. Like you could just go study all of this stuff that I'm studying and you would know the same exact thing that I know. Um, and you wouldn't need a certification. You wouldn't have to pay for it. You wouldn't have to do any of that kind of stuff. But I did chose to go that route because also if you do get certified, they are starting to insurances are starting to cover doulas, which is amazing.
Hmm.
I know there are certain states like Oregon, Massachusetts, off the top of my head right now. That's what I know. But there are a couple of other states that are covering it. And I know in South Carolina, it's going to be voted on pretty shortly. So getting a certification would help for that because then you would be able to get more clients because it would be able to be covered by insurance. Um,
Hmm.
and in order, programs can vary. There was one program I was looking at, and it was strictly just postpartum, and it was a very in depth program, and that was like $3,000 to do.
Yeah.
Um, and then you can do some programs where it'll only be a weekend, and that's like an $800 course, and you have like 3 days, um, pretty much all day long from like 8 a.m. till 8 at night. So they're long days. But you'll get certified in those 3 days. I chose a program where I can go at my own pace just because I know I'm a single mom and I don't have the liberty to like hunker down and do things sometimes at the pace that I want to do it at. Um, and so in my program, I feel like my general investment wasn't that much.
Hmm.
Um, like it was 1,500 for full spectrum doula. So that is birth doula, bereavement doula, um, postpartum, lactation, and birth educator. And then you have to buy all your own books or rent your books or do whatever. Um, so I don't feel like it was that much, and I really like the program that I'm in. Uh, and so I feel like that's kind of it can be really expensive or you can make it cost effective. That
depending
doesn't
on
really
one
answer.
route. But the one question then, do you need to recert after a certain amount of time, or once you're done with certification, you're done?
Some programs will make you do it again.
Okay.
Or you have to just like continuously take classes, which I think is great because the birth world changes all the time.
Sure.
There's new information that pops up. And I mean, same with like feeding babies. They're used to recommend giving children solids at 5 weeks. And now it's like, oh, maybe we should wait a little longer. And so, I think it's good to keep up on information because there's always new information coming out, especially with just how the birth world changed, or just with how everything changes. New medications coming out, and like if you want to become a doula, who knows how to work with epidurals, or how to deal with episiotomies, or how to like. There's so many different things, and
Wow. Okay.
like I've been taking program or courses on how to deal with or how to work with queer families, and so there's courses for everything because
Oh,
every
Yeah.
Wow.
family is different.
Lifelong learners. I love that.
Mm-hmm.
Just a quick side question, real quick. I mean, it's not a side question. It has to do with this. But in your request form for the podcast, you mentioned that you wanted to be all inclusive in the birthing world. Did we kind of hit all of that at this point? Of you were talking about postpartum and then the grief and then depression after that. Did we kind of hit the all inclusive area for you? Or are there some areas that we've missed out on when it comes to that?
Well, all inclusive for me is also in the aspect of that each family is different. So it's the LGBTQ community, it's trans families, it's um, just every single aspect of family. I want to be a safe space that people can come to and be like, oh, hey, we can talk to you about literally anything. And you have also taken the courses to understand, like you've taken the time to understand what we're going through.
Mhm.
That's kind of what I feel like with inclusivity is if you want to be inclusive, you learn about
Mm-hmm.
everything. So it's a lot of
Yeah.
work, but that's what I want to do.
Yeah.
It's so interesting because I'm learning so much, and I'm wondering if you've come across a lot of people who have misconceptions about what a doula is and what a doula does.
Mm-hmm.
Because I've heard, just like in life, I've heard people, talk about doulas in a negative way, like, oh, you don't want a doula to replace your doctor. You need to be in a hospital. But I know that a doula is really part of your team, right? You don't necessarily have to
Mm-hmm.
replace your doctor. So, like, have you run into that, like,
Oh yeah.
misconceptions on what a doula is, and how do you like talk about that for a second?
Well, some people, it's funny. They've like referred to me as a witch doctor. I'm like,
Oh
I'm
Lord.
not even a doctor. Yeah, like not even a doctor. So I'm not trying to like take that part away at all. And I think it's a term that gets misconstrued with midwife. And people
Mm,
view also midwife as this mystical thing. It's like, no, midwives are amazing. They're wonderful. They are doctors that focus strictly on birth, and that is so cool. And I think it's just this a common misconception. And to me, if someone is not open about learning about what a doula is or listening to what you're talking about, and they're all of a sudden just like, nope, you're a crazy lady. You're gonna make me do something weird, and I don't want to do that. It's like, no, I don't. No, okay. So, to me, that's like pause, and it's just not worth it. Like you wouldn't want to use a doula; it wouldn't be beneficial for you. Um, and I feel like you really have to want a doula. You have to, it has to be something that you know about or you're open to knowing about, and you want your birth experience to be something that you want it to be instead of what you're told it needs to be, um, which I think is the biggest part of it. I had a hospital birth and I had a doula there with me, and it was great. Um, And so I just think there's
That's
a
great.
lot of, there is a lot of misconceptions where they think that it takes away the doctor. I'm not a doctor. I did not go to school to
Right.
become a doctor. I am not training, like I'm not getting a certificate to become a doctor. I am just there to be a coach and to help. I'm not even trying to take away your partner either. I think a lot of people think that too. They're like, well, they're going to take away the experience from the partner. No, what I want to do is help you and your partner. I want to give tools to your partner to be able to give you the best birth. Or if there's a moment during birth where you might want to bite your partner's head off because they said something wrong, or it's like, I'll be the one to hold your hips, or I'll be the one to kind of like shake, like do like the jiggle of the hips, or push on your back, or go get you ice chips or something, or kind of like change the mood. It's like, okay, that happened. Let's put on some music that's going to help. And um, doulas aren't there to deliver your baby. They're not there to be a doctor. They're not there to do any of that. And there is a lot of negative talk about that. And I do also know that sometimes in the medical world that happens as well. There are some
Mhm.
hospitals that are not super into having doulas because there's headbutting between the doulas and the nurses. Um,
Hmm.
and I know that happened with my birth as well. I wanted my nurse to I was induced, and I wanted my nurse to tell me when every single time the Pitocin was going up, and she did not. She did not. Like, that was something that I was like, I need to know what every single step that I'm getting like more medication. Like, I just need to know that for my own brain. Um, and at one point, the nurse told me, she's like, well, you're all the way up to an 8. It's like, well, I was at a 2 like 6 hours ago. When did this happen? Because you didn't tell me. And that was when my doula stepped in. And so, because I was in the throes of contractions and not able to like figure out what was up or down, and she was able to help communicate that for me and be like, this isn't her birth plan. This is something that she wanted, and like, let's respect those wishes instead of ignoring everything that she's saying, because she does have a right to that. And that's what your doula is there to do, because birth is like, you're in it. You are in the like birth zone, and sometimes you can't get out and have a conversation with the nurse that you're like, whoa, this isn't what I want. And so they really help you stop and pause and take time to consider what's going to happen. And sometimes hospitals don't like that.
Yeah, and advocating for her.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
I
Love
love
that.
that. Thank you for clarifying that, because I know I had a lot of misconceptions about what a doula was. So
Mm-hmm.
thank you for
A
clarifying
lot of
that.
people do.
Yeah.
I find it so interesting. I know it's kind of rude, but I'm just like Googling and I'm like, oh my God, I had no idea. And I had no idea. So, that being said, Taylor, is there anything that we didn't touch upon that you would like to share about being a doula? Maybe some of the challenges that you face, again, that we didn't hit upon, that you want our listeners to know?
Mm, yeah, no. I mean, the challenge is, for me, it's kind of, you have to hustle yourself, which is kind of hard. Like, I have a hard time selling myself.
Mhm.
I'm kind of a take it or leave it person. And so I was like, oh, you either like me or you don't. So I don't know. Hire me. That'd be cool.
Why not?
So yeah, like, come on. I'm kind of fun. I know stuff. So that is the hard part about you're being a boss, and that's hard. And that does, when you have a small business, that's kind of what comes into play, is having that, and also not having a competition with other doulas. And
Mm,
it's like watching other doulas get more business than you. That's okay. Like, not that doula can't take every single birthing person in the upstate area. Like, I can promise you that.
right.
So like, birth is always going to be happening. And I think that's an important thing to remember if you're wanting to get into the business. Like, don't sell yourself short. And if you think there's too many doulas in the area, no, there isn't, because there's always going to be more people having birth. And with, I think, more knowledge of doulas coming about, and the fact that insurances are going to start, or hopefully are going to be approved. Like, you can use insurance to hire a doula. I hope that birthers will use doulas more frequently. And so I think that it is an up and coming field to get into. Because I think everybody
Love that.
deserves a coach.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, there's coaches for everything. There's coaches for fitness and,
Mhm.
eating right, and a coach for this, coach for that. And I think this is definitely an area where people don't think to ask for help because, like you mentioned before, it's supposed to be this glorious moment, and it's not necessarily that's the focus. So I love what you're doing. I love what you brought to the table with this. I love that you shared all this information. It's been so helpful and so awesome. I've learned so much stuff. Before we kind of get to the end of it, I did want to touch base on the butter tattoo because you said you love food. And then you had also mentioned that you were trying to start your own, side food business. I didn't know if you wanted to share a little bit about that and kind of just let us know a little bit of what else you got in the works on that.
So butter tattoo is me and my girlfriend eons ago, like one of my friends, we were sitting one night talking. She's now a tattoo artist. We were sitting and talking about tattoo ideas. And I was like, it'd be you're so cool to have butter, and you have slices of butter that are like flying off and turning into a butterfly. Kind of like I don't know if you guys have seen the Disney Alice in Wonderland where you have the toast with the butter on it. It's kind of like
Yeah.
that.
Okay.
And so I don't know if you guys can tell, but I have my butter has wings, so it's my butterfly.
Love it. That's awesome.
And I got it. It was right after I got divorced, and I got 3 tattoos right after I got divorced. I was like, I have to do something crazy. So I got 3 tattoos, and that one, I contacted the tattoo artist that I was going to, and I told him about my idea. He's like, this is weird. I don't know how to do this. And then the night before I was going to get it, my friend, she emailed me a picture of this. She's like, oh my gosh, I was sketching one night and this popped in my head that I hadn't drawn this yet. And so it's a drawing that I have of my friend on me now, which I'm really excited about.
That's awesome.
And my food business is well, so when I lived in California, I would do these small supper clubs, and I would have about 12 to 15 people over at my house. And I used to farm. So I had a small homestead, 5-acre homestead where I had sheep and chicken and ducks, and had like a little almost half-acre garden, and then worked on a property that was 40 acres. And they had a little bit of everything. So I raised and grew pretty much everything. Would try to raise and grow pretty much everything that I would have at these dinners. And it would be like a 5-course meal. Would start the evening off usually with a huge grazing board, and then kind of like a signature cocktail, and then wine pairing or beer pairing throughout the evening, and just kind of make it. One time I tried it to be this fancy, more upscale thing, and then I moved quickly back to family style because I'm more family style. Like, let's sit around the table, let's eat together, let's talk about what this food is, let's talk about what the dish is. And I really view food as like, it's my heart on my sleeve. Like, if I am going to cook you a meal, it's because I love you and I want to share my love with you. So that's what I'm hopefully trying to get back into and working my way through it. I've just been cooking for people. It's like, I'll cook for you, to hopefully spread the word, and have these more small, intimate dinners. And getting into the food world again is hard. It took me a while in California. But I eventually, right before COVID, was hired to work with a winery and do I call them supper clubs. And so we were going to do Sunday supper clubs with Taylor at a winery. And then COVID hit. But
nice.
Yeah, so I'm trying to do that again out here, and just have small little intimate dinners.
Love that. That sounds like so much fun. All right. Yeah. So we are going to start closing it out. Taylor, could you mention your social media handles or your websites or the name of your business one more time for all of our listeners so they can find you and your
Yes.
awesomeness.
So thanks. My Instagram handle is at Taylor D Magic, and then for my business, it is Let It Grow Doula, and there's a period in between each word. And then website I'm currently working on, so that will be shown on my Instagram handle.
Okay, perfect.
That's awesome.
Well, guys, did you have anything left for Taylor to ask her?
No,
I
No.
think I'm
I've
good.
I
had
covered everything.
Yeah, I've had a blast. Like I said, I've learned so
Yeah.
much. Thank you so much for sharing your knowledge and kind of, putting down like the misconceptions of what a doula is. I just love how passionate you are about it, and bringing and being an advocate for women who are going through this. It's an area that I definitely think needs exploring. And I think you're a perfect match and have the best energy to kind of help people through these difficult times. So thank you so much for joining us, Taylor. And everybody. Oh, sorry.
No, just
Um,
thank you so much for having me.
oh, perfect.
This was
We'll have you
fun.
back anytime. And for everybody at home listening, thank you so much for being here with us today. Remember, this is going to be on Apple, Spotify, YouTube. We are on all of the things. We are on Twitter. We're on Facebook. We're on Instagram. So make sure you check us out. If you want to be on the podcast, you can head to our website at www.waywardlasses.com. There's a podcast request form that you can fill out there. And we even have a Gmail, waywardlasses@gmail.com, that you can send in some questions, or if you want it to be on the podcast as well. Mom, Court, would one of you want to close us out for today?
Take it away, Ma.
All right, Court. All right. Thanks again, Taylor, so much for joining us. This really was fun, and I really did learn a lot. So again, thank you for that. I appreciate that. And then until next time, guys, we are the Wayward Lasses, reminding you to keep it real. Bye, guys. And thanks so
Bye.
much,
Bye,
Taylor.
everybody.
Bye-bye.
Thank you, Taylor.
Thank you.